Hello, it's time for another episode of Discipleship Today. My name is Bob Benson. I'm the pastor of Christ Lutheran Church in Bemis Point, New York. We've been using the book of John as a discipleship text because we know we had this special relationship between John and Jesus. John had referred to himself as the disciple, the beloved disciple. And there was a special relationship between this young teenage guy and Jesus Christ. And in that, it affected the way he wrote things. Today we're going to be in chapter 7 of John, and I'm just going to read 13 verses, and it's not a natural break, but I'm going to take a break there in the verse 13. I'm going to read from the ESV. I'm going to read these 13 verses, and then we're going to go back and make a couple comments about it. After this, Jesus went about in Galilee. He would not go about in Judea because the Jews were seeking to kill him. Now the Jews' feast of booths was at hand. So his brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea, that your disciples may also see the works that you are doing. For no one works in secret, if he seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world." For not even his brothers believed in him. Jesus said to them, "My time has not yet come, but your time is always here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify about it that its works are evil. You go up to the feast. I am not going up to the feast, for my time is not yet fully come." After saying this, he remained in Galilee. But after this, his brothers had gone up to the feast. Then he also went up, not publicly, but in private. The Jews were looking for him at the feast, saying, "Where is he?" And there was much muttering about him among the people. Well, some said, "He is a good man." Others said, "No, he is leading the people astray." Yet, for fear of the Jews, no one spoke openly of him. We see this time, and it says that he was supposed to go up to the feast. And we get the sense here that Jesus wanted to go to the feast, but he didn't want to go in the way they wanted. And what we understand about Jesus is Jesus completely fulfills the law. There were 3 feasts, and depending on which source you look at, maybe 4 feasts, where all Jewish men were required to go to the temple. And those feasts are Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Booths. This was one of those feasts. And if Jesus kept the whole law, he had to go up. So we understand that as we look at this text. And it wasn't the way he went. He wanted to go in private because he knew what the Jews were talking about. He knew what was going on around him. And it shows some great discernment in Jesus' mind that he shouldn't go up publicly. It wasn't about a public display of his power. It never was about a public display of his power, although he did display his power publicly sometimes. But it wasn't about publicly. It was about affecting people's lives. And he affected John's life, and I think that's why John records this incident. His time had not fully come. He did want to go to the feast. He did want to be there for this required Jewish feast, and he did go. But it really, part of it is the reaction that people had. There was muttering about him, and I think this is telling. Some said that he is a good man, and others said, "No, he is leading the people astray." And then verse 13 really impacts me. Yet for fear of the Jews, no one spoke openly about him. What they're talking about is from fear of the Jewish leaders, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Sanhedrin, the high priest. There was this fear because if you appeared to be against them, they would have you put out of the synagogue. And we don't understand that in our culture today. To be put out of the synagogue was to be destroyed publicly. You weren't able to buy or sell. If you were a tradesman, it automatically eliminated you. People would shun you as you were put out of the synagogue. They wouldn't have anything to do with you. And I don't think we understand that completely, especially in the context today. This would have been devastating to a Jewish man in those days. And I don't think we really get a sense of that. But we also know here that it applies to us today. Yet, for fear of the Jews, no one spoke openly of him. We are supposed to be witnesses. What do witnesses do? Witnesses tell what they've seen and they've experienced. We've all, as Christians, and if you're not a Christian, talk to some Christian brothers and sisters. We have all experienced that God is good. We've tasted and seen that he was good. And then, I use this analogy on Sunday. If you go to a restaurant and you have a great dining experience and the atmosphere is great and the service is great and you have a great meal, and then you get the bill and it's less than you thought it might be, you're telling everybody about this great experience you had. And I know people that know that God is good. They've tasted and seen that he is good, but they're not out telling people that he is good. And that's what we've been called to do as witnesses, as disciples. We tell other people the ways we've seen him work in our lives, the way we've seen him provide for us. And in that, don't we perpetuate what Jesus was doing with these 12 guys? See, Jesus trained up 12 guys. 11 of those guys went out and changed the world because they saw the whole discipleship model for 3.5 years. We have to be sold out for discipleship. We are all discipling. I would contend we have to get very intentional about it. And that's my challenge for you this week. Be discipled and be discipling. For Discipleship Today, my name is Bob Benson. Thank you for taking your time and listening to me today.